Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today to speak with you about how to run marketing as a team of one, but more importantly, still crush your goals. Before we get started, both my slides and all of the resources I'm mentioning throughout my presentation will be at this link after the talk. So if you're trying to find a specific HubSpot tool or resource, they will all be there. Just to get a sense of the room, could everyone who's the only marketer on their team raise their hand? Oh, that's a lot of you. Now, if you're part of a small team, could you also raise your hand? Okay, so having taken a look around the room, while you may feel like you're alone as the only marketer on your team, you're actually in a room full of marketers just like you. Because of that, you can work together and learn about best practices that I'm sure these other folks are willing to share with you. And also, they might be facing some of the same challenges as you, and you'll be able to learn to overcome them together. So a little bit more about me. I'm Susannah Morris. I moved over to HubSpot's business development team last month. But before that, I spent a little bit over 2 years on HubSpot's marketing team. The running joke at HubSpot is that HubSpot years are sort of like dog years. So everything moves so quickly that even though I may have only spent 2 years on HubSpot's marketing team, I actually spent about 16 dog years on HubSpot's marketing team. And you may also be wondering why, as a member of HubSpot, our marketing team is more than 150 people, why I'm here talking about how to run marketing as a team of one. So first, let me explain to you what an industry's marketing manager at HubSpot does. So as an industry's marketing manager, I was responsible for the entire funnel that I worked with, and I was directly aligned with the sales team. So that meant that I did everything from brand building to lead generation and sales enablement. And when I started, I actually did that for 4 different sales teams. Thankfully, after about 9 months, I was joined on the team by Juliana, so shout out to her. And I had the opportunity to take a deep dive on one specific funnel, e-commerce. Before HubSpot, I also had a background working with nonprofits and schools, so I really understand what it's like to work in a resource-scarce environment. I have literally made the choice, instead of paying the $100 for expedited shipping to know something would be there at the deadline that I needed it, to instead chase the UPS truck down the street. Feels pretty ridiculous, I can assure you. So throughout this presentation, I'll be distilling a lot of the lessons that I learned from the past couple of years into 10 fundamental steps to help you run marketing as a team of one and also crush your goals. Throughout the presentation, I'll also be highlighting specific HubSpot resources and ways that you can use HubSpot to help you do that. So let's get started. When you're marketing as a team of one, it's critical to make the investment up front to put time into your plan and strategy. Because if you don't know what your benchmark is, you can't tell how far you've come. For that reason, whether you're starting at a new company, or you may be or reassessing your current process, the first thing you need to do is an audit. So an audit will help you understand where you are and set those benchmarks. You have to ask yourself questions like, what is currently driving demand for sales? So quite simply, how are your salespeople finding folks to sell to? And this is also your opportunity to take a look and deep dive into the existing assets that you have. So you may have a blog or your website, or even it's possible that either you or a predecessor has created some content. This is an example of a dashboard in HubSpot that can help you do just that. So fully understanding your funnel and your conversion rates will help you be more successful in the long term. And when you're starting, it's possible that other people have run campaigns in the past, and you need to do a deep dive on those assets, whether it's some email marketing or the expected reach of a blog post. And all of these opportunities are ways for you to fully understand where you are so you can understand where you can go. So you may think you're off the hook once you've done your audit, but your research is actually just beginning. The next step is to develop your personas. For the unfamiliar, a persona is a fictional representation of your ideal customer. As a single marketing team member, you can't spend time trying to reach the wrong person. You don't have the resources to do that. At HubSpot, you'll often hear people talk about Mary. And Mary isn't, the new puppy down the hall or someone's new teammate. Mary's actually the persona that we've been working with over the past decade. Having a persona that's this well developed and feels that real to you will help you in the long term. Because marketing that's personalized is more effective than marketing that isn't. And while these only 5 percentage points might not seem that significant, if you're working with a small list, it's even more critical for you to get every single open. So once you fully understand your persona, there's so many options for personalization. And you can deliver an individualized experience to all of your prospective customers, both to do with their interests and where they are in the buying cycle. So in this example from HubSpot's marketing team, the Snapchat for Business offer looks different whether you access it on a desktop or on mobile. With the increase in mobile devices, your website can't look the same in both places. You need it to work for you across all different devices. Here's another example where you can personalize by lifecycle stage. So this is actually from our agency blog. This first CTA is shown to visitors. It's encouraging them to subscribe. Once you've subscribed, you get a different CTA to become a lead. And if you're already a customer, you get shown exclusive customer content, and you can also promote different kinds of product trainings, etc. So this is a way to help you move people down the funnel and help them wherever they are in their buying cycle. And here, this is new this year at Inbound. It's actually, you can personalize your subject lines. So as a single marketer, you can't be sending, creating separate lists and sending, tens of hundreds of specific emails. In this case, you can do it right in the HubSpot tool and personalize the subject line. And so in this case, the lead is shown a discount off their first order. A customer is shown a loyalty discount. It's the same 20% discount regardless. If you're trying to create a persona, HubSpot's actually put together Make My Persona, which is a persona generator, and it walks you through step-by-step all the questions you need to answer to fully understand your persona, and it also helpfully provides a Word doc at the end so you can share it with your team. So now that you've done your background research, you might be raring to go and run your first campaign. Unfortunately, it's not quite time for that yet. I personally am an optimist with what I can do with my time. I think I can do it all, and I also think that I can help out everyone who asks me for something. Unfortunately, success as a single marketing team member isn't determined by your best intentions. Instead, it's measured by how you do relative to your goals. Because of that, you need to create goals that are both clear and realistic. So the big question here is, what can you actually accomplish? And you need to be really, really honest with yourself about that. Because there's always something else that comes up, or someone who just needs this thing and is really time sensitive. And because of that, you get pulled in a lot of different directions. And so being really brutally honest here will help you be more successful in the long term. So this is actually from HubSpot's new productivity tools. It's called Projects. And it's a really awesome resource. It actually came over from HubSpot's Academy. And it has a variety of projects that you would want to do. And it breaks those down into individual steps. But more importantly, while you're trying to set your goals, it also it gives suggested amounts of time that those activities may take you. So if you think that you could actually set up a lead nurturing workflow in like an hour, well, you might want to use this as a metric to look and say like, okay, they say it says it's going to take me 7 hours over 2 weeks. I probably am being a little bit overambitious. Setting goals is also an opportunity for you to advocate for more resources. So one of the big things that we talk about a lot at HubSpot is setting stretch goals. And stretch goals are essentially what you, with say like 10 or 15% more resources, and also if like the stars just align quite right, you could achieve. So they're both aggressive, but also ambitious. And once you've sold everyone on this idea of what you could do with more resources, that's your opportunity to ask for an intern or a copywriter or even more people to join your team. So once you've set your goals, you need to figure out how you're going to get there. This is your time to set your strategy. You have to break down your strategy into individual pieces. So for example, when I did my 2016 planning for e-commerce, I actually broke it down to every content offer I was going to create. And then for my promotion strategy for my content offers, I broke it down into how many leads I could expect from an email, how many leads could I expect from a social post, and how many leads could I expect from a blog post. And this is where your audit and the benchmarks that you've developed will help you. If you don't have benchmarks because you're working at a new organization and you just don't have those existing assets, you can actually use industry averages to help you figure out where you should be. So you can work backwards from, say, the size of your list and then expected open and click rates, and then come up with an approximation of how many leads that you could expect to generate from a specific piece of content. Because if you can't break it down to this granular level, honestly, your goals might not be realistic, and that's not setting yourself up for success. Another thing to keep in mind here is don't forget your long-term goals. One of the challenges I frequently faced was I could do something right now, or I could think about what was going to help me in 6 months. Somehow the thing right now seemed way more important. So by planting seeds to help you optimize your funnel in the long term, whether that's setting up a lead nurturing flow, or changing your reporting system, or even doing something as simple as setting up an internal notification for your sales reps, all of those things will pay off down the line. And it'll help you manage both hitting your number, keeping everything running smoothly, and continuing to optimize your funnel as you continue to grow. Because if you don't plant those seeds now, they're never going to grow, and your job honestly won't get easier because you're not continuing to optimize your funnel. Again, back to projects. Oops. If you can't tell, I love the projects tool. I'm so excited about this. But this is another place that you can go back because it breaks down some of these longer term projects into individual components. So in this example, like setting up lifecycle stages, it will actually break that down piece by piece with check marks. So you can go through, you can copy this over to your own portal, and you can just get started, and I'll tell you exactly what you need to do. So the big thing here, now that you have your goals and strategy, is to get buy-in. And before you get buy-in, the critical thing that you need to do is make sure that everything is packaged up really tightly. It should be ready with a bow for all your decision makers. The big thing here is to lay your foundation early. Whether you need buy-in from your CEO, a VP of sales, or even a VP of customer service, ultimately, your plan needs to be approved by them for you to succeed. Because people are happiest when the difference between expectations and reality is the smallest. If you aren't clear with what you're going to do, people might expect you're going to do something else, or quite frankly, they might expect that you can do a lot more than you actually can. So you need to manage those expectations. This is the good kind of surprise, and let's also face it, I tried way too hard to get a dog and a party hat into my presentation. But one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten was that nothing in any of these large meetings should be a surprise. So whether it's your CEO or your annual kickoff, everyone should know what's coming before you get to that room. You need to both communicate with your team, and you also need to identify the people who need to be on board. Shopping your plan around before will both help you refine it, and it will also help highlight potential challenges that can come up, so you're ready to address those concerns in a larger format when it does happen. So the part you've all been waiting for, working your plan. As a single marketing team member, you need the life cycle of your content to be really long. And that's where the 3 R's come in: reduce, reuse, recycle. Because buyers actually view 3 to 5 pieces of content before they engage with a sales rep. As an individual, you probably don't have the bandwidth to create the volume of high-quality content that can really move the needle on your marketing efforts. Because of that, you need to be very thoughtful with how you create content. So this isn't, just to be clear, posting the same thing to every social channel that you have, or even saving a couple of blog posts into a PDF ebook. It's actually thinking about your persona, thinking about how they consume content, and finally finding a way to bring those two together on the channels that they use to educate themselves and create your content there. So an example from my time as an e-commerce marketing manager here was last year I actually created a webinar on holiday preparedness for e-commerce companies. And it was a live webinar. I've now subsequently relaunched that webinar this year as an ebook. And I've also turned the deck from the webinar into a slide share to promote the ebook. The reason that I didn't just re-promote the recorded webinar was because I know my persona well enough that I know they don't really respond well to recorded content. They're much more engaged with live. So resending that webinar wouldn't be effective. Instead, I reformatted the content that I had spent so long developing. And it means that I've been able to produce some high-quality content this month while preparing for inbound that wasn't super intensive and time-consuming for me. One of the other challenges you face as an individual marketer is trying to develop your content strategy. You know, here at HubSpot, we have dozens of people dedicated to that. And we know that. And so because of that, we've actually changed and developed some new products to help you do just that. Unfortunately, I am before our VP of Product, Christopher O'Donnell, and I am not allowed to tell you about them yet. But I do want to pitch that you should absolutely attend his product launch session. We have some really exciting updates coming, and it will definitely help you as individual marketers and small teams be more thoughtful with your content strategy. We also recently launched a content marketing certification course from HubSpot Academy. Who here has a certification from HubSpot Academy? So it's a great resource to help you be a better marketer and also help you do more with your time. So if you're interested in how to responsibly repurpose your content, you should absolutely check out this certification. We launched it last week. So now that you understand your content strategy, you need to think about the rest of your funnel. Freelancers can help if you're lucky enough to have a budget. I know it's good to have a budget, but also I've experienced not having one. And so this is your opportunity to phone a friend and leverage other people at your company and also automation so you can get more done. You need to raise your hand and ask for help. All too often, you can be in a situation where you're just trying to crush through it, when really you just need to tap someone on the shoulder and they're more than happy to share their expertise. It can be anything as simple as a one-off brainstorm to actually creating content for you. So here's an example of a brainstorm document that I shared with the e-com team at HubSpot. Because they were actually talking to my persona every day on the phone, both my sales and services folks really had a finger on the pulse of the topics that were coming up and also questions that people just needed the answer to. And as a marketer, obviously I'm trying to market to that persona, and I can be way more effective if I know, for example, that people are having trouble setting up an abandoned cart workflow. And I can help educate them, and also it helps elevate the conversation that both sales and services are having on the phone, because they can send a resource, and then they get to have a higher level conversation about okay, now that you understand this, let's take this to the next level. Let's do 10% more. How can we make more out of this? You can also use your team to expand your reach. So this is an example from Ted, who's on the e-com team. And he's external facing, and in his signature, he included a link to an upcoming event, and he also includes an ebook. So oftentimes, especially in a consultative sales process, people are looking to share content with their networks, and they want to be an expert. You can provide them the tools to help do that, and it will also help you expand your reach. Here's an example from Lauren on our services team. She shared a group of holiday resources that we developed last year. You can even tap teammates to present with you on webinars or at events. So this is an example of our head of e-com sales who presented with me on a webinar. And one of the things that I found is people are happy to share their domain expertise, but they also really like the way their headshot looks on a landing page. You can even tap other people on your team to write content for you. So here's an example from Alex. He actually used 5 specific customer examples in this blog post. And a lot of people are trying to hone their writing chops, and the best thing that I've found to get people over that barrier to, oh, maybe my writing isn't good enough, is to offer to be a strong editor for them. People are generally willing to take feedback, and they do want to become better writers. All of these are opportunities to help other people on your team build their personal brand. As the marketer, you control the external channels that your company has, and you can use those to help leverage them to get people on board to help you out. You can also expand your reach in this capacity, and people are really generally fairly willing to do that. One of the challenges that you can often have with leveraging other people is that you can get sucked into this problem where you end up spending more time editing the blog post and giving them feedback on the blog post and doing all that kind of stuff than you could have just written the blog post yourself. So creating strong processes around that will help you set clear boundaries about what you are willing and unwilling to do to help people here, and mostly set yourself up for success because you'll be able to control your time and your calendar. Here's an example, again from projects, where you can break it down into these individual tasks for someone on your team, and you can even add due dates and message people from within the app. So you don't even need to leave HubSpot to make sure that all the contributors you're managing are on track for what they're doing. You can also attach images. So for example, if you came across a really great header image for the blog post, or if there was a particular CTA that you wanted to include at the end of the post, you can attach these here, and then it's all in one place, it's ready to go. You also have an opportunity to leverage automation. So beyond just leaning on people on your team, you can use automation to scale your funnel and also reduce the number of repetitive tasks that you have to do. B2B marketers actually say that the #1 benefit of marketing automation is the ability to generate more and better leads. And by automating a lot of tasks that may be time-consuming, you free up your time to spend it where it matters the most. This will also help you scale your funnel beyond your individual skills. So there are only so many hours in the day for you, but if you can automate things, they can be done without you doing it. So we often talk at HubSpot about inbound marketing, meaning that it can market while you sleep. Automation will also help you do that. Here's an example of a lead notification. So if someone was a lead in HubSpot and signed up for inbound, their sales rep actually got a notification with helpful resources and recommended agendas to share with that person to follow up. Or you could automate repetitive tasks. So in this case, you can actually just book time directly on my calendar instead of having to email back and forth a bunch to say like, oh no, actually can we push it half an hour? Or oh, well, Tuesday doesn't work, could we do Wednesday? It's all right here and you avoid that. Going back to the webinar example from earlier, you can even send event and webinar reminders through automation. So in this case, it's the sign-in information for that same webinar that I did in February. And afterwards, I used smart content to follow up and included whether or not you watched the webinar or not, you got a link to the recording and a slightly different message. So now that you've done all of this and you're on track, you're running your first campaigns, how can you know if you're succeeding? Well, you have to analyze everything because you don't have the capacity to spend your time and resources on things that aren't working. Unfortunately, 24% of marketers don't know whether or not their efforts resulted in closed-won deals. It's hard to know if you're allocating your time effectively if that's the case. We all want to be part of the 76%. To do that, you need to continually measure your funnel. Like I mentioned earlier, it will help you track your goals because you can't crush goals that you don't know how you're doing against. You'll know exactly what you need to do and when you'll need to do it if you're keeping on track of your analysis. It also gives you an opportunity to optimize early and often. So all too frequently, people launch their campaign and it's like, okay, I'm done. That's cool, I launched that campaign. It was really hard, on to the next thing. But if you're a single marketing team member, you can't just wash your hands of that. You need that campaign to work for you. So by continually looking at your campaign and seeing and analyzing how you're doing, you'll be able to tweak it as you go. So that's anything from if you see it going sideways, you can send another email or write another blog post or do another social post. Or if it is going really well, you can look at that and know whether that topic is a really good fit for your audience or really understand what you had done differently. And finally, analysis is a way for you to continue to share your results. This will help you build buy-in throughout the year. It's easy to get excited in your annual kickoff and everyone's on board and all your goals are aligned and your strategy's set and you're ready to hit the ground running. It's another thing in June when some other priorities have come up. It's going to be the summer, your coworker's getting married. It's just harder to keep your eye on the ball. Because of that, by sharing your results, you can continue to build buy-in as you go, and you can continue to share your success in a way that you couldn't necessarily do if you had to wait for your monthly meeting. Here's an example of a marketing dashboard in HubSpot. So another challenge that marketers often face is pulling your analytics and understanding how you're actually doing requires downloading a bunch of CSVs, putting them in an Excel file, doing a VLOOKUP, and then maybe you kind of understand how you're doing. It makes it seem like a monolithic task. So in HubSpot, we actually have a dashboard that will do a lot of that for you. And when you log in to your portal, it's right there front and center. So every single time that you're going in to do something, you get a snapshot of how you're doing this month. You can even edit this to include specific reports. So if you were launching a new campaign or running an event, you could actually create a waterfall that would track how you're doing relative to your goal. Like I mentioned earlier, you can also automate your reporting. This is an example of a lead gen dashboard that measures both leads generated and MQLs generated that is sent to the HubSpot marketing team every day at noon. Because of this, you can send this to other people on your team, and you don't necessarily have to send them an email yourself and say, did you know I'm crushing it this month? Instead, there's a report that does it for you. I, for example, shared my e-commerce funnel with my e-commerce sales manager. And so twice a week, we would get the same email, and it was a really great way to guide the conversations I was having with him. I was totally transparent with how we were doing. If we were behind, I would come to our meetings telling him what my plan was moving forward. Or if I was succeeding, he would be able to say, like, oh, are we doing something differently? What else is going on? This is awesome, but how can we continue to do this and continue to grow our teams? So now that you have your plan and your strategy and you're actually running your campaigns, it can be easy to think that you can outwork your to-do list. But unfortunately, as a marketing team of one, that's not possible. And the other challenge is oftentimes if you aren't going to do something, it's just not going to get done. Your work is mission critical, and that can be a burden for you to bear. It's often a long road ahead, especially at a smaller, quickly growing company. And the main thing that you need to do is know your limits so you don't burn out. The big thing here is learning to say no. I personally had a really hard time with this because I always want to help people. And additionally, if you're always doing the thing right now and jumping on that fire that has just come up, you're not going to be able to continue to optimize your funnel in the long term. And again, your job won't get easier. You'll just keep chasing that number month after month, and you won't be able to build on what you're doing and help get closer. I've had to learn to say no, and the benefit here is that it will help you in the long term. The challenge is, especially when you're working with a passionate team, is that you have to say no in the right way, because otherwise you run the risk of alienating someone, and you can't enlist them in your cause and get them on board to help you out if you reject their idea. So one of the things that I found really helpful is mapping why you're saying no back to your goals. Because it's not a rejection of someone's idea, it's being really thoughtful about, is this going to help me hit my number this month? If it's not, then maybe that goes on a longer term list. For example, say your Q1 goal is to generate 450 leads. From your audit, you know that it'll take 2 lead gen offers to get you there. You're also trying to increase the number of terms that your blog ranks for. So you want to try and write 2 blog posts a week. And finally, you've noticed that your funnel metrics further down the funnel are slipping a little bit, and so you want to set up a lead nurturing workflow to help move them along. It's really easy to look at this and get overwhelmed with the amount of content that you have to create. It's 3 offers, 26 blog posts, and that's before you even start distributing that content, or even if you need to do sales enablement, or literally anything else. You're just creating content if that's all you have to do. But if you've been really thoughtful about what your goals are, and as clear as your plan is, you can actually map these tasks back to your goals. So for the lead nurturing flow, you could write those posts as part of your January and February blog posts. Then you'll have the content you need to create for your offer. Then you're ready to set your flow up in March. You avoid that moment on February 28th when you're like, oh, I still have 2 offers to write and weekly blog posts, and I told Steve that I would help him out on this event that we're handling. Ooh. It helps you find the opportunities for overlap so you can work smarter and not harder. Going back to saying no, one of the things that can be a challenge is people then will just check in about their idea. And you end up spending more of your time keeping an eye on other people and managing other people's sort of pet rocks. This is where a backlog comes in. And creating a backlog is a list of everything you wish you could do. And the benefit here is that you can also add more context. So if someone asks you for, say, getting your CEO to speak at the biggest event in your industry, you can say, okay, that's great. that's going to be really difficult and pretty expensive. So I'm going to put this on this list, and I'm going to say it's going to be really difficult and pretty expensive. And then when people come and ask you about why your CEO isn't speaking at that top industry event yet, you can say, well, I decided instead of doing that to generate all the leads that you needed to close business this year, or whatever it may be. You could even go a step further depending on the size of your organization and actually develop a form that people can submit ideas to you. So this particular example is from HubSpot's content strategy team. And one of the things that they've done is they've actually helped guide the conversation around these ideas. So it's not just, I have an idea, we should do it. It's, oh, you have an idea, what is the goal of that idea? Especially if you're working with non-marketers, as many of you are, it can be hard to explain how difficult some of these projects are and how time-consuming they could be. And while it would be cool to have, new backpacks or the top industry event or the front page of the New York Times, whatever it may be that folks on your team are asking you for, you need to make sure to guide that conversation back to how this is going to help us get where we need to be. Another opportunity you have here is to make your backlog public. So your goals are already public, at least with the higher members of your team, but by being really transparent with what you're working on, people can understand what else their idea is going up against, because your time is finite. Here's an example backlog. This one's actually in Trello, and it's included all of this ongoing projects, what's on for this month, what's on for next month, the backlog, and then it also includes completed projects. So if someone on your team isn't super familiar, not clued in with what you're doing, you can point them to this and say, like, okay, doing the customer survey is on my list, but in terms of my priorities, this is what I'm really working on. And these are my goals, and this is how we're going to get there. So this might seem like a lot, but there are a few fundamental things that will help you as a single marketer succeed. The first is making sure that you're really allocating your time wisely through your audit and developing your personas, making sure you're reaching the right people. Next, by setting your goal and strategy and getting buy-in on your plan, everyone knows what you're doing, and you'll be successful in terms of managing those expectations that people have for you. Next, by enlisting people on your team and also in using automation, you can be more successful because you can really allocate your efforts in places that it is needed. And it will also help you scale your marketing as you grow. And finally, knowing your limits and creating a backlog will help you do all of these and help you crush your goals. While you may feel like you're alone, we're all in the same boat here together, and there are a lot of marketers just like you in this room. I'm sure they're happy to talk to you about their own best practices, and I hope that this has been helpful for you as you think about your own organization. As a reminder, slides and resources are at this link, and you'll be able to access them after the presentation. I'm also happy to take any questions that you may have.